Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond an MCU fan podcast. We are talking Ultimate Spider-Man issue 8 today here, the Jonathan Hickman run. Um this one was a doozy, a really good Peter Parker story here, but it's a majorly set up here for the villain side of things as next month we are going to be getting the Sinister Six. We kind of see the formation of that in this issue. So I guess generally here, what was your thoughts, Chris, on issue 8 of Ultimate Spider-Man?
I thought this was a really jam packed issue. I think they kind of made it feel like it was going to be almost a back burner in the beginning because, you had the kid's birthday party, and then, nope, you had all the stuff with uh, Stark, you had all the stuff with the suit talking to him and the little ball, and he's like, what the heck is going on? You had the Sinister Six, like we mentioned. So there, I could not believe they fit so much into the issue. It kind of flew by. It was really exciting, and I think it set up a really cool next story here because I mean they've been getting there, and I really like. And we also got some really good stuff with the paper. So really cool stuff.
Yeah, some good stuff here in it. We kind of, last month had ended on Iron Lad coming in. We kind of do this thing that they've been liking to do since they skip ahead here is then kind of go back and show um like 3 weeks ago, right? And we get them asking questions here. And I think this is again the seeds of the Harry and Peter split. I think is starting to show in here when they're asking questions about, why do I have the more high tech suit? Why this? Why that? And you get the answer from Tony that Peter's name was like number one on the list, right, of people to bring back and have them use powers. And Harry asks, "Where was I on the list?" And Tony says, "You weren't on it at all." I think that's going to kind of stick in Harry's crawl here a bit, and might start again the seeds of them drifting apart and maybe having some conflict here.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially when you compound it with the daddy issues he has, as an Osborn in general. And we've talked about that as the series is going on. That's, the fact that he has his father's voice in his head with the AI thing. But I really think Harry's the guy who has something to prove, or Harry's the guy who has something to prove, where Peter's like, you know what, I'm pretty content. I'm in a good spot in life. That's the kind of cool thing about having the older Spider-Man. So I think this is going to be, like you said, a real pin at the heart of Harry, and I think it's going to propel resentment. Resentment is a really good way to split people up. And on Peter's side, I think he's already starting to get a little hesitant with Harry because, the last issue, he's like, man, he really needs a therapist. He's really kind of, they practiced with the suits and it was like an all out war. And I, you know, the awkward conversation at the dinner table a few issues ago. So I think the split is definitely happening. I don't think it's subtle, and I think really Peter is carrying the relationship here because Harry is pretty much wrapped up in himself.
And here's the thing too. I think there's another way that they can do this too. We have this kickoff, right, where they're at where he's looking at the ball that holds the costume. And now that he does have his voice in it, it is talking to him, right? And it's joking around with him. It's doing all this stuff. It wants him to use the suit. And he's able to kind of resist this, I think, because it is his voice. He is able to kind of put it down. It is a more harmless person talking to him because it's himself. I do wonder now with Norman being the voice in Harry's, as we kind of saw last month, um, that this might again, we kind of speculated on that last month, but this might be again another hint to that where he is having trouble, you know, separating himself from it because it's going to be saying stuff that his dad would say instead of stuff Peter would say. So Peter's able to kind of get out of it because he's like, um, talking to himself here. While feel like it does kind of have its own motives to want to be used, he's able to kind of that personality is able to let it go. While I think the personality of Norman is not going to be able to let it go, and it's going to be constantly telling Harry he's not good enough, as we saw in that flashback episode where he was very down on Harry, uh, you know, before Norman died. He was very down on Harry and very like brutal to him. I feel like with what he would say, the words that he would sting him with, and I think we're going to see that, and that might be exactly what we're seeing Peter go through it. We haven't seen Harry go through it yet, and I do think we are gonna get to that, Harry, especially with his name not being on the list. This might be something that Norman, AI Norman, throws at him. "Hey, you weren't even, special enough to be on the list." And it just getting and grading on him until, he goes overboard here. So I'll be very curious to see when that takes effect. Because next month we know is the Sinister Six. I doubt we'll see too much of that then, but it's just stuff that I'm thinking as Peter's going through it. Harry's probably going through it as well, and we're just not seeing that. Maybe we get another flashback issue like we did in issue 5 that kind of catches up with where Harry's been during this time. I don't know, just something I'm just thinking of now.
Yeah, I totally see that. I feel like you needed somebody in the room when he decided to have Norman be the voice in his head. You needed someone in the room saying, "Why do you want to do that?" It would have been helpful. Um, but I will tell you that in psychology, you have the conversation in your head all the time. It's the superego, the ego, and the id kind of wrestling around. And Peter has a much healthier version of that because it's really just an outward of what's in his head already. But for Norman is the id. Norman is the one who the insatiable need, the want, the drive, the insecurity. Norman is the he's his father, but he's the childish resist. He has no resistance. It's all the negative, all the bad, all the everything unfiltered. And I think that's really the dichotomy that's going to be. I think Harry can't possibly be the same person with his father's voice in his head. And now you couple that with you're a nobody. You're a nobody. I agree. I think you're right on the right track with this. And yeah, I couldn't agree more.
The back half of this is mostly setting up the Sinister Six with Fisk and uh Fisk's I'm blank. Oh, Mr. Wesley, the assistant coming in and assisting with him, and that's how we get the description of the Sinister Six is through Mr. Wesley's descriptions. Martin Lee. So we're gonna get Martin Lee, who of course is the CEO of the Feast Foundation. Um, he is that in the normal comics as well, and in the Spider-Man PS4 game, and he is also Mr. Negative, and we get to see a little bit of him. We also have Walter Hardy, Felicia's dad, and we actually see Felicia Hardy in like a family photo, and she is on the cover of one of these upcoming issues, I believe that they shared. So get prepared to see Felicia Hardy either as it looked like she was Black Cat. So I'm thinking maybe something happens to her dad in this arc, right? So we have him as the original Black Cat. We have Craven, the hunter, who's going to be in this. We have Mysterio, which I'm excited to see. The art by Chichetto here for Mysterio, I think, is quite wonderful.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
And then we have Kingpin, right? So that's five, and we got or that's is that four or five there? One, two, three, four, five. Yeah, and then the sixth one here is Mole Man, which I think is a very interesting pick since he's not typically a Spider-Man hero, a villain. So we'll see how that goes. But we do see Black Cat looking over a folder that shows the Green Goblin and Spider-Man's photos in it. Um, after Kingpin handed all those out. So it does seem like they are going after both of them, not just Spider Man. So maybe we will see some stuff with uh, Harry's side of things in September, or see how he's adjusting to the suit. Because we didn't really see him in this issue except for the flashback that just says,
Hmm.
"Hey, I'm not special, right? I wasn't on the list." But man, I look this is my favorite comic going on right now. Ultimate Spider-Man, I think, is the one I look forward to every single month. Um, it's this and World's Finest for me. That's up there for my favorites. I'm gonna be probably dropping a lot of comics in October because of the DC relaunch. I just I feel like that'll be an appropriate time for me to cancel before I get roped into new stories. And so, I'm going to only be keeping a few going on. We've been having the X-Men talk on here. That will probably only go a couple more months, the X-Men talk, just because it is. I do feel like most people will drop off reading comics. After a relaunch, people will kind of drop off after a little bit. I started subbing to the Ultimates, and I know I mentioned, I think last month, that I wanted to read Ultimate Invasion, and I reread Ultimate Universe, and now I've been reading the Ultimates. I read the first two issues of the Ultimates. That has been a really good book, so I recommend that. If you're really diving into brand new Marvel stuff that has a minimal entry point, I would say entering in with the Ultimates and Ultimate Spider-Man is the best way. I would also say Uncanny X-Men with the Gail Simone run that just started is a pretty good starting point as well, especially just that roster of X-Men is really good. But yeah, if you want to read Marvel comics, I recommend the series. I haven't read Ultimate Black Panther, I haven't read Ultimate X-Men, so I can't really quite vouch for those. But um, geez, I'm just so happy that they relaunched the Ultimate Universe, because I find the little twist they can do with it so clever. I feel like we're getting so much good Green Goblin Spider-Man stuff that we haven't gotten in the main comics for quite a while.
Yeah, there's no status quo anymore. It keeps you on your toes, and it's still doing what Spider-Man does. Like, I feel like the core tenets of Peter Parker are there, but I really do enjoy more than anything the older, more mature Spider-Man, because it's kind of like a break from all of the continual high school, college Spider-Man that we've gotten. So, I'm having a lot of fun with it. I think it's an exciting time, and I look forward to Wednesday. It's like I look forward to Wednesday because these issues, are like little bursts of joy. I mean, they give you so much. The artwork in this series has been really stellar, in my opinion. And the story, like I said, it keeps you on your toes. So I'm kind of always like reading it going, I wonder what they're going to do here. I wonder what the connection is there. I wonder if they're going to draw back to that. And, a lot of times with comics, that doesn't happen anymore because you kind of know the story. So the Ultimates universe so far is cool. And I'm looking forward to diving into more of it actually, too. So, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. It's a fun way to do it.
Yeah, I think I think you nailed it, Chris. It's kind of like when you're watching an adaptation, right? When you're watching an adaptation of something, you're like, oh, I wonder what little twist they might do with this, or and you get little excitement from it, like, oh, this universe is this or whatever. Especially like back in the day, I would say like before the big budget stuff. Like go back to watching Smallville or something, and you're like, oh, this is their version of Mr. Mxyzptlk, right? Um, because it's like, yeah, they wanted to do it in a high school setting. This is how they do it. Great. Is he super comic accurate? No, but you're sitting there thinking, how can they do this? And I feel like that's what I'm getting out of the Ultimate Universe. I'm always on my feet, always on my toes here with especially Ultimate Spider-Man, where I'm like, all right, show me like getting that Sinister Six, and I'm like, all right, yeah, cool. Oh, it's Black Cat, and we're gonna see Felicia later, and we'll see how that works out, or you know the things you can do with the relationship between Peter and Harry, or Peter and MJ, and Peter and his kids. Just always keeps me on my toes more than just opening up a regular Amazing Spider-Man issue where I'm like, yeah, we already know what the 616 is like. And they're kind of spinning their wheels, trying to figure out how to keep it going at times. So, um, more stuff like this. DC, we know DC's trying something like this. It's called Absolute Universe. Batman is launching in October, right? We're all very big fans of his design. And we have Absolute Superman and Absolute Wonder Woman coming out, Absolute Flash in early next year. I'm going to check out Absolute Flash, but that's the kind of stuff that I'll be looking forward to, because it's like different spins on stuff. Because right now, Cy Spurrier's Flash is not doing it for me. Um, Another reason why I'm thinking I'm dropping it in October and just try to collect the trades
Yeah,
later.
I think the trend right now is to get past the fatigue of superhero fatigue in every medium. I think fresh storytelling is really the main thing that people are looking for. I think that's what we always had. And now that I don't think people say they're running out of stories, I don't think they're running out of stories. I think they're running out of ways to stick with the most popular stories and keep the most popular things going, because audiences have been kind of hesitant to jump onto the fringe things or the less popular name brand superheroes. So I think comics is really just expanding the trend in the movies to find ways to make the big guns interesting. I mean, we have Robert Downey Jr. returning to the MCU. That's really propelling my theory there that got to keep the A cast of the big guns interesting, and you got to keep redoing it in ways that work. And yeah, I think the Ultimate Universe is doing exactly that.
Anything else about this issue? Before like you mentioned, we have the. I guess let's talk about the paper real quick, because we do have Uncle Ben and JJ offering Peter a job. He's very hesitant to do so because he, is keeping this secret of being Spider-Man and all that. But do we think ultimately, no pun intended there, I didn't mean that. Do we think he will take the job? And maybe like next month starts out with like his first day or something at the paper.
Yeah, I think he'll take the job because he has a support in MJ. MJ has been supportive the whole way. I think that's kind of what she wants him to do anyway. I think it's more of do what you need to do and we'll figure it out later because it's a mature relationship. I think he'll end up with the paper. And, you know, Jay Jonah was really one of my favorite parts of this issue. Like he's the quiet MVP of it. He's like, did you get the other one a gift? I was like, why would I get the and his awkward interactions at the birthday party. It's he wrote his own book. He's a publishing. I published it myself. Like he's like this underdog guy, which is hilarious. He, I like this Jay Jonah. I really do. So um it added a bit of character to a pretty straightforward story where you get the bad guys together. I I really am excited about the bad guys, but I think most of that excitement we'll get next month.
Yeah, and JJ's gift to to the son, right, is a book from him. It is his book that he self-published or whatever, and has tons of copies of. So, just real funny how that is. Yeah, no, that again, that's the kind of stuff you can play around with the Ultimate Universe. You have a JJJ that is, pretty okay. and um, not really a rival for Peter or a antagonist in Peter's life so far.
You have to make
Um,
him just a
yeah.
little bit pathetic. Like, I think the
Mm-hmm.
key to J. Jonah Jameson is he has to be at least a little bit unlikable or pathetic in some way. But, we're seeing a strong character, and like his scruffness next to Ben's just smile radiant. Ben Parker almost reads as like a Pa Kent in this. So, like, next to that, it really works.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Well, that's mostly it, right?
Hmm.
These things are these episodes are getting a little shorter because some of these episodes, I mean, issues don't have a lot to talk about. I'm sure next month might be pretty good with the Sinister Six, so we'll see how that goes.
That is an
Um,
interesting Sinister
yeah,
Six, though. I mean, I
yeah,
didn't.
not the
I,
typical.
Not the typical. I do like the connection to the PS4 game because I saw that and I was like, PS4. Um,
Hmm.
and so I like that game, and it was cool to see him. And I really Mole Man. It was like I know
Yeah,
nothing about Mole Man, so like a lot of these characters you're playing around with, like we said, the same old thing. But Mole Man, I'm like, you can do whatever you want with him. I wouldn't know anything anyway, so that
yeah.
kind of gives.
Usually a Fantastic Four villain, but as we've established, there is no Fantastic Four in this universe because in this universe, for people that don't know, if you're not reading the Ultimates, Doctor Doom is Reed Richards. Um, and so there is no Fantastic Four. That was one of the things prevented by the Maker as well. Is the accident didn't happen to give them their powers. So there is no Fantastic Four in this universe. So I guess Mole Man needs a new hero to face off against. So it will be Spider Man. So there you go. All right. Well, that about wraps us up here. Short and sweet today. I hope everybody's enjoying Ultimate Spider Man. If you're just listening to these for some reason and not reading along with them, stop doing that and like read these issues. I tremendously recommend um, this book.
I
So
mean, keep
please
listening, but you definitely should
listen
check out the
after
book.
you read. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so we'll be back next month for more of that. Also coming up on to the Infinity Saga and beyond. Of course, we're getting closer and closer to Agatha All Along releasing. We have Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man releasing supposedly in November, and we'll see if that is true. And then, of course, the next film, Captain America: Brave New World, in February. So just stick with us here as we continue to build our way towards Captain America: Brave New World.